In a major development, there were reports that Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu had gone on a secret visit to Saudi Arabia to meet with the visiting dignitary, Secretary of State of the United States of America, Mike Pompeo, as also met with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. While it was swiftly denied by Saudi Arabia, Tel Aviv did not really clearly comment on the issue. But here's a report as to why Tel Aviv is feeling the need to reach out at a point when there's a change of guard in Washington, D.C.
The news of Netanyahu's possible visit started appearing when many on social media started putting out a flight map of a special flight, Gulfstream 450, flying from Tel Aviv to Saudi megacity Neom on Sunday. Exactly during the time US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo met Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in the city of Neom. A day later, on the 23rd of November, Israel's Education Minister Yoav Gallant spoke about the meeting on state army radio. Prompt came the denial from Riyadh. Saudi Minister for Foreign Affairs Faisal bin Farhan tweeted the denial firmly, saying that the only officials present in Neom were Americans and Saudis. Israel, on the other hand, remained guarded.
ידידיי, אני מעולם לא התייחסתי לדברים הללו לאורך שנותיי, ואני לא מתכוון להתחיל לעשות זאת עכשיו. ואני רק יכול להגיד לכם שאני באמת לאורך שנותיי כראש ממשלה אני לא חסכתי שום מאמץ כדי לחזק את מדינת ישראל וכדי להרחיב את מעגל השלום. ובעזרת השם אנחנו מצליחים לעשות זאת עם שכנותינו, עם האמירויות, עם בחריין, עם סודן, ואני מקווה גם שהמעגל הזה תמיד ילך ויתרחב.
Israel is a strategically important country in the Middle East and a strategic partner to the US. The American Jewish community commands sizable sway among influencers, lawmakers, and policy formulators. The Trump administration opened up the gates for Israel after years of isolation to key Arab nations with the Abraham Accord. Even at the fag end of its administration, it now tries to solidify its Arab policy. Mike Pompeo has been on a trip in the region, and the last week he paid his first visit by a US Secretary of State to an Israeli settlement in the occupied West Bank. This is being seen as a parting show of solidarity with Prime Minister Netanyahu by the outgoing Trump administration.
Today I want to make one announcement with respect to a decision by the State Department that we will regard the global anti-Israel BDS campaign as anti-Semitic. I know this sounds simple to you, Mr. Prime Minister. It seems like a statement of fact, but I want you to know that we will immediately take steps to identify organizations that engage in hateful BDS conduct and withdraw U.S. government support for such groups.
The meeting, if confirmed, would be the first of its kind between the Israeli Prime Minister and the Saudi Crown Prince, and it comes just months after the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain normalized relations with Israel.
In particular, what we are looking at today is realignment between the Arab Gulf states and Israel as they look and position themselves for a post-Trump Washington's policy towards the region, which may not likely be in their favor, and therefore they are making it very clear to the Biden administration that the chips have fallen in a certain direction, and Biden administration perhaps would be forced to respond to those new alignments.
The path to peace in the Middle East has never been easy, but the Abraham Accord has opened up an opportunity for talks to take place, for compromise to happen, to unite the region for development and growth. Saudi Arabia is the key player in all of this.
India this week engaged the world with briefings on a possible terror attack being planned by Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed. Intelligence inputs helped avert the attack. Foreign Secretary Harsh Shringla, along with his team of ME officials, briefed envoys here in India, while Indian envoys briefed the foreign offices in their respective countries. Nagrota has become the latest flashpoint.
The JEM terror plot busted in Nagrota in Jammu region led to another set of dossiers being handed over to the envoys of various countries with proof of Pakistan's involvement in destabilization and disruption of peace in Jammu and Kashmir. According to intelligence agencies in India, the attack was being planned to coincide with the 12th anniversary of 26/11 Mumbai terror attack. This was one of the first of several briefings conducted by MEA in small groups since the pandemic started. Foreign Secretary briefed a select group of heads of missions from the 5 UN permanent member countries and a few others. They were briefed on how the terrorists got into India, the discovery of an underground tunnel in the Samba sector, and how markings on the recovered AK-47 rifles and other items indicate that the terrorists belong to Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed.
Jaish-e-Mohammed is totally involved in this attempt to create terror in Nagrota. You see, this Pakistan is becoming totally baffled and Pakistan is feeling helpless on account of 3 reasons. Abrogation of Article 370, the way unrest is brewing up within Pakistan and Pakistan army is getting targeted. So Pakistan army is resorting to the same tactics which it was using for many, many years.
While India handed inverted dossier in New Delhi, Pakistan did the same against India at the United Nations.
Pakistan is presenting this dossier to the UN, OIC, P5 countries, and others. We expect the international community to play its role for peace and stability in the region.
India debunked all claims made by Pakistan. Pakistan has been mulling over the possibilities of making Gilgit-Baltistan part of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir or POK a 5th province of the country.
जो हमने फैसला किया था कि गिलगित बल्तिस्तान के लोगों को प्रोविंशियल स्टेटस जो देना था और वो इसलिए देना था कि वहाँ एक एहसास महरूमी थी, लोग समझते थे कि वो पाकिस्तान के बराबर के शहरी नहीं हैं। मैं आपको आज यकीन दिलाता हूँ कि इंशाअल्लाह पूरी तरह आपको वो जो हमारा वादा है वो पूरा करेंगे आपसे।
This move could backfire for Pakistan as it stands to lose all rights to invoke UN resolutions which clearly state that referendum can only be conducted in the whole of undivided Jammu and Kashmir.
The Afghanistan Conference 2020 held in Geneva showed the tightrope walk that Kabul has to do with all stakeholders in the region. Some are allies, then there are some others who are competitors and those who are rivals. For Afghanistan, what is important is that all these nations come together to end the 4-decade-long war.
I'd like to thank Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan, in Turkey, in Georgia, for agreeing with us on the Lapis Lazuli corridor. That is crucial. I'd like to thank India and Iran for the Chabahar corridor and related sea corridor as well as the air corridor.
Ashraf Ghani covered all bases as he concluded the keynote address at the Afghanistan Conference 2020 held in Geneva. It showed the interest every region of the world has in ensuring peace in Afghanistan, which is the key to connectivity and enhanced economic cooperation in the geopolitics of the region. But for any real development to be realized, the conflict will have to stop in Afghanistan.
We support the call by United Nations Secretary General Guterres and United Nations Security Council for an immediate, unconditional and nationwide ceasefire. A ceasefire should not be the outcome of the peace process. A ceasefire should accompany the process as from today. A genuine partner for peace should not only spare international from attacks, but also stop attacking and to killing its own compatriots.
And while Afghanistan has begun talks with the Taliban, at the forefront is the international community's concern for minority and women's rights. The two sections of Afghan society most fearful of impact by the Taliban and the other fundamentalist forces.
The people of Afghanistan face serious challenges, including conflict, poverty, and the uneven application of the rule of law. Two major global crises, COVID-19 pandemic and the climate emergency, are making life even more difficult, particularly for the most vulnerable. The pandemic has exacerbated humanitarian and development challenges, impeded access to healthcare and education, and stymied economic growth, affecting millions of Afghans.
Afghanistan is at the crossroads of history and has been for some time now. Its future seems to be still hanging in balance as the world tries to figure out a way to find peace in this volatile land.
Welcome back to Word Today. Before we talk about the vaccine war or the vaccine race, let's talk about all the other news from across the world in World at a Glance.
Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy will face trial in a Paris court from 30th November. Sarkozy and magistrate Gilbert Azibert face charges of corruption and influence peddling in a phone-tapping scandal. They stand trial in a Paris court along with the president's former lawyer, Thierry Herzog. Hearing of the trial will continue till 10th December. So far, they have denied any wrongdoing. But if proven guilty, they can face a prison sentence of up to 10 years and a fine of 1 million euros. Another 43 Chinese apps have been banned by the Indian government. These apps include Alipay and Snack Video that are available on app marketplaces. Government has cited threat to national security in respect to the app ban. British-Australian academic Kylie Moore Gilbert was released after being detained in Iran for 804 days. The academic from Melbourne University was freed in exchange for the release of 3 Iranians who were held in Thailand. Australian media reported that the Iranian authorities had detained her after discovering she was in a relationship with an Israeli citizen. This led to their accusations of her being a spy for Israel. Gilbert arrived back in Australia on 27th November. A Japanese spacecraft is nearing Earth after a year-long journey home from a distant asteroid with soil samples and data that could provide clues to the origins of the solar system. The Hayabusa 2 spacecraft left the asteroid Yugu about 300 million kilometers from Earth in 2019. It is now expected to reach Earth and drop a capsule containing the precious samples in southern Australia on December 6th. China launched its most ambitious moon mission till date on 24th November. Chang'e 5 will bring back material from the moon's surface for the first time in more than 40 years. This is expected to boost human understanding of the moon and of the solar system. If successful, experts believe this could pave the way for bringing back samples from Mars or even a crewed lunar mission.
26/11 is a grim reminder of how the world needs to come together to combat terrorism. While the international community is still debating on how to define terrorism, 12 years have passed since victims of 26/11 are waiting for justice and want the investigations and the trials in Pakistan to conclude. Meanwhile, it's not just India. Israel and the United States of America are also important countries that have been fighting this war with India. United States of America announced a $5 million reward for 3 of those who have been named in the US federal courts: Sajid Mir, Mazhar Iqbal and Major Iqbal. And here's an exclusive conversation I had with the Israeli envoy to India, Dr. Ron Malka, who spoke on various aspects of terrorism and 26/11. Listen.
A very somber moment, Ambassador, given that we are still seeking justice. There still is no end to the struggle that we've seen. Your first comments on the anniversary of 26/11 attacks.
Today is a very special day, both for India and Israel. The same day, both Indians and Jews and Israelis and tourists from all over the world 12 years ago were attacked by terrorists. India and Israel share not only the same values, history, heritage, and ethics. Today we share the same grief and sorrow, and we realize that we share the same hostilities. These days we commemorate the memory of those who died. People. It's a very sad day. We share the same grief and pain, but these days also remind us that although we are yearning for peace and friendships, we need to be strong. These days unite us and remind us that we need to know how to defend ourselves.
Ambassador Malka, the terrorists who entered India and were targeting anyone and everyone, also focused on foreign nationals. Victims are still there in Israel, families of the victims. Baby Moshe was one of the victims, and families of the victims, his parents were killed. He's now a young boy, and they all still are awaiting justice. But this is a grim reminder of what terrorism can really do to people, to homes, to families.
Yes. Terrorism is now I think that the world realizes that terrorism is a global disease. Terrorism is something that the world should get united against. And once we'll get united, we'll win terrorism. It's not accepted by any means. No different kinds of terrorism. Terrorism is terrorism is terrorism, and is zero tolerance towards terrorism. The world should get united. And I think that India and Israel are shining examples for how countries can get united, collaborate, and do beautiful things in favor not only of themselves, but also of the world. Just lately, under this pandemic, India and Israel joint research on rapid tests for COVID-19. Once we conclude this very special joint research, it will be good news not only for India and Israel, but for the world. That's how countries should get united and work together and support each other.
Well, there is unprecedented cooperation when it comes to India and Israel, and we'll talk about that. But speaking about Chabad House, we know that was one of the buildings that came under severe attack, and that's why the reference to baby Moshe and his parents. But there is a memorial that is being built by Israel. If you could talk a little more about that and elaborate what the real plan is about a 26/11 memorial.
Yes, so there's going to be a memorial city of Eilat. We keep always to commemorate the memory of those who were perished, those innocent people, children and women and men that were targeted by these cruel terrorists. And as I said, it's very important to keep memorials, to keep the memory. In these days, we respect the memory of those who died, but these days also, as I said, unite us, strengthen us, and remind us what we need to be and what we need to do in order to prevent these kind of things in the future.
Before I let you go, brief words on the anniversary of 26/11, Ambassador Malka.
Well, this is, as I said, every Memorial Day is a sad day, but it's a uniting day. And the memory of those who perished will be a blessing for us all.
On that note, many thanks for joining us here in an exclusive conversation with India Today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.